right, we'll call this special meeting to order on discussing the telephone system here at the courthouse.
I'm gonna pull up the chair and
Pull your chair up
sit
and
here,
join us.
or this one, doesn't matter. So, you guys had questions, how do we get from here, there to here, I think, and what are we really encompassing? And then there were some other comments that were made in the meeting previously. It's like, well, we've got some systems in place and, is that valuable? What do we do with those? What does that look like? The proposal that you have was more of an all-inclusive approach. So it was like, put the whole county on the same thing, no hardware to maintain, no back-end hardware to maintain. Let it all be hosted the same way, so all offices can call each other. They all have the same features, functionality in common, right? It doesn't have to be done that way. I mean, in other words, we could say, I'll pick somebody out like the sheriff's department. We could say, well, we're going to leave the sheriff's department on their current phones that are X years old. Let's see, they were
Can you care if I go
Yeah.
ahead and
2019, but we could
Dumb
pick
this
and
down.
choose. Go ahead.
you're an expert when it comes to wiring and phones and this system and that system. I'm just gonna try to dumb this down, if that's
Okay.
okay. So, the project was brought to us, I wanna say a year and a half ago. And when it was presented, it was, I'm only gonna speak for myself, but I'm gonna speculate, Siler took it the same way, that we were getting the phone system with the wiring. Well, over time, we realized that was not the case, and it was not you that presented it, it was one of the other elected officials on our second floor. So now what your company has done is completed the wiring process, so all of the second floor
Right.
is eligible for upgraded phone system, which we do not have. But you're saying, and this is where you may need to correct me, and again, I'm sorry if I'm speaking
No,
for
go
you.
ahead.
We like layman's terms.
Right.
So if the second floor needs a phone system, the first and the third and the sheriff have a phone system, can they be hooked up to this? Or are you saying that we need to purchase all new phone systems for everybody to be on the new integrated wiring?
The same phone system.
Right. So the first floor, the only people on the first floor that have a phone system is the health department.
Okay,
So
Do the other people on the first floor have?
they have the same thing the second floor has.
So they don't even have the capability?
yeah,
Oh,
do they have the wiring?
They have
Yes,
the wiring.
we already did the wiring. That was a phase even before this phase of wiring.
So all floors are wired and capable?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
I
first,
mean,
second, and third are
the
all,
oldest wiring, but it's capable. The oldest wiring exists in the third floor, original courts offices. This wiring is there. Is it the most updated? No, it's the oldest version of
Cat.
everything. So,
Like Cat 5, Cat?
yeah, it's Cat 5.
Okay.
And they're still wiring off some cables because, although that was put in as a network and they were ahead of the game in networking and we didn't do all that wiring, it was done even like pre us. They've added more devices along the way, and so to handle those more devices, instead of doing the wiring correctly, they've just wired it off, which does work, but it's not ideal, right? It's not current standard wiring. I'll say that. So at some point in time, we're going to have to say, okay, they're not. We get a faster internet connection. Are they benefiting? No, because they can't get that faster internet connection because it's limited on speeds by their wiring. Does that stop the phones from working? No, because the phones aren't speed sensitive. But they may at some point say, hey, our computers aren't fast enough. Well, it's going to be because of they're generationally old on wiring. That's it. The only people and they do have a phone system that is it's probably one of the oldest ones we installed. It goes back to where you didn't even use computer cabling. You used some of the old cabling patched together. So theirs is very old. The health department is probably the newest version of one, but even it was installed. It's surprising how the dates go by quickly. Health department was almost 5 years. You know, and I mean, it's like, do you have a 5-year-old cell phone? Do you have, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
So what is your
So,
thoughts for, we did the wiring.
yeah.
Is today's meeting to discuss
Well,
all the county phones,
well,
or, because we were just under the understanding when that was presented to us with this quote, and I'm not, you didn't do the quote, it was an individual that works in our courthouse, that this was for the second floor to get upgraded to this phone.
yeah, I think, it's
We were speculating
it's
it
an
was also the
interpretation
phones.
of their language that they were probably
Right.
using, unfortunately. But here's where I stand on it, and two things have collided together. One is we've completed the wiring, which is great because it also helps us in other areas like getting the computers to be reliable because they're network dependent and they weren't reliable on the previous network. Hopefully it'll help us save money on internet and speeds of internet as we demand more speeds, which everybody will. That aside, the other thing that's happened is, we have been, and we've known this for years, we've been kicking the can down the road with the AT&T bill. Saying, oh, well, we'll just kick it down the can, kick the can down the road. And what's happened with that is, we've come to the end of that technology where AT&T is going to force you off of it by raising your rate. When people double their rate, it's not to make more money, it's to force you off. They
Yeah,
want you off of that technology.
I think we got all that.
So that then played into the alignment of saying, well, if that's true, we need to not only address the courthouse because they're on those lines, but we need to address the sheriff's department who's on those lines, and everybody that's using those lines, right? It affects everybody. So that's what the realignment was, to say, okay, what's the best solution? What do we look at for the best solution? And we looked at finances and technology and hand in hand. You can look at only technology, but you need to look at finances. And so hand in hand, we looked at those and said, okay, we can piecemeal things and keep stuff, but then we have to maintain that stuff that we piecemealed, which creates a maintenance issue, and we have dollars on maintenance that we've been spending. What if we eliminated those dollars on maintenance and eliminated the AT&T bill? What would the solution be? What would the dollars? And that's what this proposal derived it down to, okay?
So looking at the numbers, with your numbers for our current monthly cost, our monthly maintenance cost, who is our monthly maintenance provider?
Us.
$750. Okay,
Well,
so
on the
you're
systems.
You're charging us $715 a month on average?
Yeah, for all the things that we have on maintenance. So that's sheriff, that's highway department, that's EMA, that is the prosecutor's office, that is the health department here. So all those are separate systems, separately maintained.
Right.
And that's where I got that funneled, down to that dollar. So it's not just here, that dollar's not just here, it's to all of them.
So this packet, is your price the $3,057 a month, or is it the $4,200 on page 4, or is it the page 6, $4,000?
Page 6 is the summary, so let's go back to what you're referring to on the other ones. Okay.
So on page
So
3.
you're on page 3. So the AT&T was the 18, the maintenance was 715. So the average monthly cost over the past 10 years was at 3,057. That was, I'm giving you history, not
Okay.
going forward. That's history. So we can say, well, in the past, I've only paid a little over $3,000 with AT&T and maintenance, over a 10-year period, right? However, and that's great to look at the past, and everybody wants to, and I put it in there because it's always a question asked, what have we been spending? However, we know what AT&T has told us. Hey, we're gonna double this 1,800 minimum, we're gonna double it, right? So we know that's going up. That was that number. Then this, here, we're saying, look at a conservative estimate over a 5-year period, looking at upfront hardware cost, maintenance, and SIP line service, if we went to hold on to the equipment we have, that's what I was trying to do. What if we held on to the equipment we have, and what if we bought equipment for people that don't have it? So all the floors that don't have it, we're gonna buy them equipment, we're gonna create a hardware style system, okay? So that would create an upfront investment of the estimated $100,000 to get everybody up to date, okay? And everybody on hardware systems. And we can go through how that became about. And then we'd have to maintain the maintenance, and we'd put in what we call SIP line service to displace AT&T. So we're gonna lock them out and put in a current line service, which is called SIP, Standard Internet Protocol. What would the monthly be on the maintenance of now bigger systems, right, to encapsulate everybody? And of that SIP line service, which the money goes down on SIP compared to what AT&T is. I mean, it's a quarter of what AT&T is. So we save money there, but we have to maintain more equipment. We're over $4,000.
So, I don't see, I see the value in the web-based. We've seen the value in having the web-based, the cloud attendant. I think it's valuable for each department, but our tax bills just went out this week, and I don't think the taxpayers want us to spend an extra $100,000, $12,000 annually with what cleans up an inconvenience.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that would be
Well, and that's
a significant concern for the people that elect us.
So three stances here. We do nothing. AT&T bill's going to go up.
Right, but
Okay.
AT&T has since reached out. They've been a little bit more open to communication the past couple months of some alternative ideas of what
Right.
we could do going
Well,
forward.
their alternative is what they call BVoIP. And
What is
it does not function the same way your dial tone does now. Like you transfer between departments, you can't do that transfer the way it is. They won't tell you the things that don't work to the analog line service, okay? So all I'm saying is, yes, you can go to their BVoIP. They claim it's the same, but it won't be. It doesn't work the same. They can't emulate what they were doing under Centrex under BVoIP. It wasn't designed to do Centrex. Now, the other problem with that is to do BVoIP, it takes putting fiber in, which means they have to put fiber in not only to this building, but to EMA, to Highway, to Purdue, they have to put fiber in everywhere because it doesn't run over their copper lines, thank goodness, because if you call Purdue right now, their lines are out, and AT&T says, so, sorry, it's old wiring. So, it would take them deploying fiber, and then with that, they're gonna say, hey, sign a multi-year deal to be on this, but you don't even know how the service works, and you've already signed up for it, and I'm just saying, you can do that, it's just not going to be what you expect it to be. Now, that doesn't, let's say they did that for $1,800 a month, they still say the same thing. So yeah, you to your point, you saved $1,000 a month, essentially.
For an inconvenience.
Huh?
For an inconvenience, that's.
Right.
Yeah.
Or,
I think there's a few more downfalls, not just inconvenience
Yeah.
of transferring calls. Like there is
so,
calls or phones that if it rains, they can be down for 3 days. There's also overriding of.
Is that a
more of that's
issue?
copper line service, so if they go to the fiber, some of that will be cleaned up. Of course, then, what happens when you go to BVoIP is you lose the features that you're used to under Centrex, because it was a totally different product that was developed. Centrex was developed years ago to eliminate phone systems. Of course, it's not convenient, to your point. It's very inconvenient. It was designed to limit to displace a phone system. Okay, BVoIP was not designed to displace a phone system. BVoIP was designed to offer you dial tone. So it's not they're not even the same product. It's like saying, well, I'm going to I've got a 1-ton pickup truck, but they're going to give me, the engine's blown, they're going to give me a half-ton pickup truck for the same price, but I haul a ton of bricks, so what's that going to do for me? Nothing. I mean, it's going to be more inconvenient than you think. Plus, I mean, I think you're kicking the can down the road again to the reality of what's there. I mean, hardware manufacturers in general are saying to phone systems, and it would have been real easy for us to come here and say to you, hey, let's just add a few phones on the second floor and make those people sort of happy, right? To the systems that we have in here and not worry about anybody else, or just make them a little more convenient, right? And that would have been much less than 100,000. I mean, to add, let's say, just do that little pigeonhole thing. And of course, it would have raised the maintenance a little bit. But the problem is from a hardware manufacturer standpoint side, I mean, I'm just saying an industry standpoint side, is by 2030, pretty much all the hardware manufacturers are saying, we're going to get out of that business because it's a dead model, because everything's moving to hosted. So now, here we are at 2030, what we don't know is when they stop making hardware, and many of them have already exited the industry, okay? And the few that are around that seem to be good, 2 of the big guys have filed bankruptcy more than once. So NEC hasn't, but Mitel has and Avaya has filed bankruptcy more than once. So the point I'm trying to get on that is we get to 2030 and they're all saying, hey, we're going to stop making hardware because the hardware sales are going down. I mean, they're being replaced by hosted services because they make more sense. So we get to 2030, the question is, are they going to offer maintenance and support on the software that runs the phone systems past 2030? Or is it going to be a hard stop? And if it's a hard stop, then it's like a Windows 7 computer or a Windows XP computer. I mean, well, I can keep running it, but I don't know what's going to happen. So this is why I'm so passionate about like not investing more dollars into something that I don't know what in 5 years from now, or the clock is ticking a little bit less, is going to be. We're going to have a conversation that you don't like, I mean, because. And I would rather be upfront with people that this is coming. It's a hard stop that the industry is saying, and it's because their sales have dropped more than 50% since the introduction of hosted services. I mean, they cannot manufacture this stuff and support the factories that they're maintaining it. That's why several Panasonic, Toshiba, and a lot of names have just completely shut down already. So. We are on a stop at some point, whether we like it or not, to what are we going to do? And that's just a reality. Now, so when I looked at that, I said, well, what would that solution be to do something that essentially, because the desk set, the phone itself is so insignificant, there's no back end loaded on the phone. It's like a screen to a keyboard, okay? It's just a screen that has a handset on it. They're so insignificant that once you move to the hosted world, I mean, you basically never become obsolescent. You never have a box that breaks. None of that. And yes, you say convenience, but I mean, when I talk to people like the prosecutor's office, they're like, okay, those functions would make our life a lot easier if we had those functions, if we could do those things. We didn't know we could do those things. And, although I haven't had an in-depth conversation with every single person I've told about it, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even know we could do those things. So that would help us.
No, you can ask them. I'm the first one to jump on the technology. Like that's, right. I get it, and there is a lot of benefit to it. But the only thing I worry about is the price tag that's tied to it for.
Right. So let's get to pay
right now with stuff still going through
right.
the legislature. Future funding. It's
right. So we are, right now, paying, for what we have been averaging, we're a little over $3,000 a month. To your point, it would go up $1,000 a month. Yes.
Right, but then, what is it, 100,000 to?
No. So then,
What is that
the
on
one
page?
time, that's the summary page, this page, right here. Right here.
Okay.
Okay, so concentrate on this page. So we go up $1,000 a month. So these are your upfront expenses, and they're broken down into 3 categories. So the phone sets, the actual phone sets, right? Those, yes, are upfront. They will be actually on the first bill of the service provider. So that $4,000 bill, that's why I broke it down. It's going to have a $14,500 phone set and adapters for the fax machines, things like that on it, because it comes directly from them, okay? Now, from Midwest Telecom standpoint, we have a couple areas. One is, obviously our time to go to every single department, set this up, train people, program people. We do all that. So just like we did on the health department, we came in, set it all up, programmed it to ring like they wanted it to ring, loaded everything, and trained the people. So we're going to do that the same way. That's a labor cost to all the departments. The second item, and I broke that down a little bit farther, that 13.7 is that, when you go to the circuit court, the sheriff's, community corrections, highway department, community center, they have a very old network switch, okay? And even though their wiring is what it is, it's adequate in these places, their switch is so old, it won't support, I'm surprised they're not having computer problems because their switches are so old. Do you have to buy those from us? No. We have supplied all the switches here, but their switches need to be upgraded to adequately perform reliable service on the new phones.
Correct. And we did do the quote through both of these.
Do you remember what it was?
Midwest gave the lower quote. So we did all of
So
this
the
2
13.7
years
is
ago
lower?
with the wiring.
In-house, when we did the switch upgrade.
I'm just saying, from the quote from 2 years ago, when Daryl, I don't know if that's why you're here,
No, I just want to be in on my side there, but
Daryl. Okay. So 2 years
That's
ago,
something
when
I-
we did all of this, we did 2 quotes, and Midwest came in as the lower quote.
So this 4,000 or 4,000 a month would we be agreeing to a yearly contract? Would you consider something if we did a multi-year contract, if we spent all this money and?
So
we
that
could
is,
factor in some savings?
yep, that is based on a 3-year
So
term.
4,000
Okay.
per year, we're locked.
Yep, and that got us agreeing to a 3-year. You see the credit underneath the 14.5 of 9,180 credit on the phones. That was me with the service provider saying, okay, what if, at 1 year, they don't give you any credit on the phone. So how do I get the phone price lower? And they said, well, if you commit to a 3-year, we'll discount the phones, that $9,180, bring it down to 14.5. I said, well, what if I do a 5-year? And they said, well, we don't care if you do a 3 or a 5. Three is the biggest discount on the ROI for the phones that they give. So, which at that point, you're month to month, so you're not locked in. It doesn't auto renew. There's no 3-year to go to the 3-year term. It becomes monthly. But and I've been working with this provider for now over 10 years. They have never raised their rates in 10 years, never. So, we've asked them about, well, what if we wanted to sign a 3-year agreement? What would that do? And they're like, well, we're not raising our rates, so there's no value in that. So, anyway, all I can tell you is what they've been consistent with. So
these prices that you're talking are, it would cost $14,500 for the hardware, then a once-time installation and telephone setup of $20,000, and then a one-time network PoE hardware needs.
for
of
those
13.7.
locations, yeah.
After those costs, we're estimating you're stating it would be $4,000 a month for the next 3 years, just to have 116 phones, which currently right now, we have 116 phone lines.
You have 90-something phone lines
And you're
because,
minimizing 116 phones into 22 lines?
no, so like the reason there's a difference in line and phones is because the sheriff has a lot more phone stations than they do have lines. So that's why there's 90-some phone numbers and 116 phones. That's
Okay,
an
okay.
example. Okay, now.
But I guess what I'm
it-
I'm using my ignorance of knowledge in regards to this. So I'm gonna say with AT&T lines, let's say you had 5, and maybe you already know this?
You're doing me?
Yeah. 5, this is what I learned. Say we have 5 different lines, but when you do move it to an analog phone, you can take those 5 different numbers and put them into one analog line.
Yeah, it becomes, on hosted, it becomes really an unlimited capacity, and it's not based on line.
Instead of
Right.
AT&T
It's-
charging us per line.
What do you guys
Right.
have?
It's-
How many phones are in your office?
Phones in my office alone, there's 5. And just so I can get this on the record, I mean, but where we got into all this other phones is about 5 years ago. My girls want headsets. What we've got is not compatible. You can't do a headset. And with all the technology that's improved, and I'm sure everybody else is the same, you sit there trying to type in payments or look up cases and you got one hand with the phone. So if, and I know Dave and I talked about the headset situation, which this would take care of. Some of that, I'm sure, but, yeah, so.
Yeah, each
Just
department then would,
Yeah.
buy the headset that they wanted. I mean, if they want dual earmuffs, one earmuffs, hang on, I mean, there's so many different cosmetic features with that.
We've actually, if you count a fax machine, there's 6. I hate fax machines. That thing would go in a skinny minute. And I think we could run it through our copy machine as well if we decided to do that. So there's basically, in actuality, there's 6 phone lines in that office and one in the voter registration office.
So to your point,
You could eliminate some of the costs of each
You're basically
Well, it does, Hosted does that, because what
Yes.
Hosted does is it says, it's not charged by line. You keep all your phone numbers, but
Correct.
it's not charged by line. I mean, it's literally charged by user, more specifically. If he's got 5 users, that's how it's being charged. If they have 3 calls in process at the same time, or 15 calls in process at the same time, it doesn't matter. The call capacity is irrelevant. So to the sheriff's department, or EMA in a disaster, instead of having, like EMA's got 1 line, instead of having 1 line, they have unlimited lines if they want it.
Because as many numbers are called, they can call and you can pick up that many lines.
Right,
That
it's,
many
it's
calls.
not busy. It's,
Right.
it's never busy, because you're not paying for that capacity. You're paying by a user, and every user gets unlimited capacity.
I'm sorry, I was just really trying to just
And so
dumb it down.
the health department's already on this?
No, nobody is. The health department is on a NEC phone system. The technology I told you is essentially going away. And, they budgeted for that within their own budget about, like I said, 5 years ago when we put that in.
So the only one that's really on the cloud is our attendant, as far as being a web-based.
Yeah, so what we did was to get the automated attendant, to select the departments, we had to create a user, okay?
And so we're just looking at doing this on a massive scale, basically.
Right, so we essentially installed the user in the one office, and that gets us the automated attendant for free. So, I mean, there was no way to pay, the automated attendant essentially is the freebie for getting a user, so the cost of the automated attendant is a user. Well, instead of wasting the user, we said, well, we'll just trade your phone out and make your number that user. So we moved her number, well, it actually moves tomorrow, from AT&T onto that phone. And, of course, from there, that user will have more capacity than anybody else does. I mean, that user will, and you're right, it would be just an expansion of that user.
And so the 4,000 monthly, you know, right now you said we're about $715 a month in maintenance. This 4,000 includes maintenance.
There's nothing to maintain. Our maintenance, our bill for Midwest Telecom goes away. Because when you go to the rack right now, you're gonna see a black box on the rack downstairs, that's the health department. You're gonna see one upstairs in the courts. You would see one at the sheriff's department. Those boxes all go away. There's no hardware anymore. So what we're really maintaining right now under that maintenance is the hardware, the software upgrades to that hardware, which comes with a support agreement from NEC. So we pay NEC for the software support agreement. And also maintaining of the phone sets. Well, the cost of a phone set and a phone system is, you know, $400 to $400 to $500. They're very expensive because they're proprietary. The cost of a phone set under hosted is $100 and something. So you know, you negate, you know, the need for maintenance, because worst case scenario, if somebody's phone gets pulled off their desk and smashes, well, literally, you can go on, you know, your admin portal. You can go on our admin portal and select replacement phone, and it's already pre-programmed for that user, and it's shipped, and you know, it's on your bill if you had to break it. So why
if
do
we
I
have
need
issues-
maintenance?
If we have issues with the system or with the number, are you guys our point of contact, or we got to go through intermediate?
We're the point of contact. Yeah.
And no, like that's built into our monthly.
No, but we find that it's just not needed. I mean, we could create a maintenance contract, okay? I don't think they're needed. You know, I think it's a waste of money. That's my point, is that's why we drop maintenance altogether, because once we get the customer up and going, it's just, they don't need us, they don't call us. So then you're creating a maintenance contract on kind of false pretenses that you need to call us for something when you don't. I mean, once the users are up and going.
Is there ever a situation where these go down at all, like on the system wide? Like, is there, other than
Well,
power
I mean-
being out, or is there any other situation that would knock the courthouse just?
Yeah, so, I mean, I can give you all the white paper data. They have 5 nines of reliability because they have a dozen duplicated servers, 3 in the United States, 1 in Canada, and the others are in other countries. They're all redundant. I can give you all that data. But, you know, I mean, to that point, if somebody goes out here and starts digging in the street and tears up the internet line, it would be the same as tearing up your phone lines from AT&T. If somebody digs through that, they dig through it, right? I mean,
So similar circumstances would knock it out.
yeah, I mean, if they dig through the wiring that comes to this building somewhere between here and point B, it's going out. Now, if Melissa downloads the app on her cell phone and it's using cellular data, it rings if somebody's calling the auditor's department. So if they wanted to sustain operations, I mean, the app functions as that using cellular data. So from the standpoint of digging up a line, it's more redundant. Now, I guess there can be a global failure. We've seen those before in the network world where, geez, you know, a quarter of the country is wiped out on internet or something. I mean, all those things that affect cellular towers as well, right? I mean, I've seen that where the cellular towers went down because they rely on data too. So the cellular, I mean, it was a massive failure. And Evansville had one about 2 years ago where they lost a big portion of internet went down.
Yeah, I think we were all part of that, where,
Those are outside of anybody's control.
and so, same thing. The hardware in the courthouse would go down in
Well,
that same circumstance.
there's no hardware because it's just using the router and the switches, right? So that hardware doesn't exist. That's why if I had it downloaded on my app and I could get cellular data, that's why it works. Because there's nothing here that runs the phones anymore. There is now, but there's nothing here in this building that runs the phones.
So for the circuit court, the sheriff, community corrections, highway department, community center, the PoE switches, that has to be done to advance them onto the,
My concern, no, it doesn't. My concern is reliability on what they have.
because of,
Age and technology of the network switches they're using.
So
I-
basically, what you're thinking is we need to get everything done in the courthouse this year, and then the next years, in our next 2 or 3 years, go ahead and upgrade, take it in steps.
Yeah,
Is
can
that
I,
what you're kind of thinking?
could you,
Upgrading our courthouse first, worrying about our sheriff's department next year, and worrying about our highway department the next year. Is that kind of
well,
line that you're taking?
the 13.7, could that be kicked down the road? Yes, it could be. I mean, there are ways to do it without putting a new PoE switch in. For example, just on the phone standpoint alone, if we did this, each phone comes with an AC adapter to plug into the wall. So, could I plug each phone into the wall? That takes care of the PoE portion of the issue. That doesn't take care of the technology and age of the switch issue, which to me, it's an electronic piece of hardware. It's got an age reliability to it. But to your point, you could kick the can down to that 13.7, and then you could make each one of those departments, I hate to say pay for it, but you could say, hey, as you experience issues in your network, per se, computers, anything, it's because you have an old switch. And that can be dispersed out to everybody and said, it's on you. You have to do it. Because, yes, we could plug the phone in and plug in an AC adapter and the phone would work.
okay,
So the 13.7 could be kicked.
for another year or 2 years
Or addressed
or as needed.
as needed, yeah, an as needed addressment.
As needed.
Which that saves, that'd save about 15 grand as part of
As
this
needed
package.
per building, just get it so we get the courthouse done first, and next year we can concentrate on the sheriff or the highway, whichever one is in the most need.
The highway just had theirs
And the
done.
highway, okay, so we can concentrate on.
The highway is just a network switch that we're
That's what
talking
they would
about.
need.
Huh?
That's what they would need.
Well, that would make them current on their network
just-
switch.
Okay.
They have a very old network switch out there, again, but it wasn't put in with the phone system. I don't know when it was put in, okay?
Well,
I don't know. And again, like I said, they could address that individually. They could say, well, we're gonna upgrade our network switch with whoever,
That's our responsibility.
yeah, we could assist
That's
them
the
with saying, hey, when you get to that
responsibility
point,
to decide who's gonna do that.
yeah, when we get to
So
that,
it'll be what we want done, so my suggestion is plain and simple. We take care of our courthouse this year, and next year we look into into our sheriff's department and to our highway. What is your
Does this
opinion on that?
courthouse include the prosecutor? And, because we have several different departments, when you're saying, let's do the courthouse,
well, the
Are those all
4,000
different
is all of them. I can redesign it, to leave like the sheriff's department's phones alone, okay? And then we just have to assess whether we're gonna put their dial tone, keep it with AT&T or move them to something within that switch within that phone system to eliminate AT&T altogether that's feeding the sheriff's department. And we might say, well, if AT&T will let us use that copper dial tone for longer, we don't do anything. We just hold it at the sheriff's department, right?
I guess for me, I really wanted to get away from using the copper dial tone across the board, or we're not really,
Well, my only concern was 911. We had, the power went down, the internet went down, what was it, last week? Citywide, we had no internet for a full day. What would that look like for dispatch?
So,
so they have a 911 backup center that is controlled by the state, and Sherry and I talked about this.
So in the instance of last week when we lost that, how fast could they get to that? Is it on site or is it a different, is that quick? Okay.
So,
And I mean, that was the whole purpose of the backup.
When you're talking
So-
about kicking it,
So-
waiting to take care of the PoE switches, or taking care of the sheriff's office, you're just talking about the switches and things like
I'm
that.
just talking about, yes, I'm just
So,
talking about.
because we want the volume, we want the volume discount of the hardware, the setup, and the services, if we're gonna spend that money. And
so was Spectrum down? I'm sorry, was, do
I have
do
no
we
idea.
know what the problem was? Was it Spectrum that was down?
I guess so.
Okay, and does, 911 has an AT&T connection coming in that building too? Did their 911 still worked, right?
Yeah, there were no issues with them last week, there just was in the courthouse, I mean, it was, I never heard any issues with their phones, but if we're gonna go to these phones that are internet-based, my
Right.
concern is.
Yeah, one of the
what
things
would
we
that
talked-
look like?
Right, one of the things we talked to the sheriff about, well, actually the 911 director about, to clarify, is making a complete redundancy there. In other words, putting in the new phones, but in the dispatch in certain office areas, keeping the old phone system plugged in and running on on a much limited scale, on a completely different connection going out, if she, as an option, if she wanted that. I said, well, for example, Owensboro 911, we do one of their phone systems at Owensboro 911. They actually chose 2 vendors even to make it more unique. So they have 2 phones sitting on the 911 desk in Owensboro, completely, like one of them's ours, one of them's another vendor from completely different services to make it 100% redundant. I mean, so we don't use anything that they've used and they don't use anything that we've used. I mean, that's the ideal situation. Ironically, they've never had to use it, but they haven't, and I mean, and that's kind of why they put that remote 911 in at the EMA building. I mean, is like, well, hope we never have to use it because it's not ideal, but they haven't. Right now, the only problem with the phones out there is if they move out there because the phones went down, those phones are down too, because it's all the same system. So, I mean,
Well, I think that the state has done something to make sure that that is not that.
but our box is still here. The box running those phones is still in this building. So if this box goes down, both sites go down.
What is timeline, like, as soon as we make a decision, what does the timeline look like?
Well, there's definitely more meetings with each department that have to be done.
Like 3 months, 6 months?
No, it would probably be a couple months. Because you have to sit down with people and you have to go through their programming. I mean,
Right,
you
so
can't just
like
install
Daryl's-
something.
Somebody's calling to pay child support, maybe that goes to Tammy, or I don't know who it goes to, but very specifically how everything's
Yeah,
structured.
we should be, correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, but with this system, we should be able to gear people to where they need to go. I mean, when it answers, if you need to make a small claim, you go to this number or press whatever, we should be able to be more point specific. Is that true?
If you want your main number to be answered as an automated attendant, I mean, and, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much automated
To me,
attendant.
that's what this whole meeting was
Yeah.
just supposed to be about.
Yeah, do we have the main
I think
automated
everything else that
attendant?
we've discussed here is above, beyond what I was thinking, what this was all about. The only thing this meeting I understood was supposed to be about was so we could get a damn automated system in here to go to everybody. Keep it there.
Yeah.
That's where we wanna be. I don't wanna hear about all this other crap. I wanna hear how we're going to get it, so when somebody calls in here, they get exactly who they want. They can punch a number, it comes on. Anytime I call into farm services, that's what I get. You punch this number for that. That's what I want for the courthouse. That's it.
Do we
I
want-
don't care about any of this other stuff. Get us set up on that.
Do we want there to be one main number for the whole courthouse, or do we want,
I want one main number, and that comes in, it goes into the automation,
Okay.
and they punch who they want. That's it.
okay,
All
so,
this other crap I don't care about until we have to have it. Let's take care of the courthouse right now.
So we've kind of done a little bit of step one. We have one main number that's listed on Google Maps. So if you go Google Spencer County Courthouse, you're gonna get one number. And when you call that number, you get a tree that gets you to each department. Now, once I'm at that department, I'm not asking questions, okay?
But it could.
But it could, yes. And so I would be in the favor of, you know, right now, under his department website, he lists a separate number than the courthouse. I mean, I would be in favor of him changing that number to the courthouse number. So, you know, that way I started a main number. You know, I'm always calling the courthouse.
So
And
you're,
I think all
so
those things can be worked out, those details.
are we accepting this today, or are we going to table it to the next regular meeting?
Well, in our commissioners meeting, I think isn't that where we need to make a decision?
Well, you guys aren't bound to make a decision then, I mean, you can, I mean, that's up to you
I
guys.
just would really like to figure out, are we or are we not? Unless you're saying that you have more questions.
I don't have any more questions, and
I mean, I'm only saying that because it's been
I
going on
definitely
for
wanna
2
drop,
years.
I definitely wanna drop the POE switches for now. And then minimize our costs right now and transition before the AT&T, otherwise we're stuck in a conundrum of paying
Two bills.
two bills, and I think it's a net positive at that point probably. But I feel a lot better dropping the nearly 15 grand on the switches to just knock it off, and then we can get rolling with.
I think that,
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just trying to be as,
And I think
I'm
we're
just
just,
trying to be as transparent as possible and not, well, it's not my intention to come in and say we can do it for this and then come back next month and say, hey, they need a POE switch or they need this, because I always feel like that's a bad way to approach
yeah,
things.
and I think we just handle those as they come, you know, because we don't know what revenue will look like in a year or 2 years, and so,
Right.
you know, we need to,
We don't.
but it's needed, and if we could get volume, let's go ahead and get volume, because shit's not getting cheaper, so that would be my suggestion, is that we table this till this afternoon, or can we even accept something here?
Well, it is, I mean, yeah, you theoretically could, it's a special meeting, there's nothing that stops you from approving it here, you could wait till 3.
Do you guys wanna wait, or you wanna just do it
no,
now?
make a motion, if you're ready,
Alright,
make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept, the setup services, the hardware charges, and, the monthly services, and that as soon as we are able in transition, we cancel our contracts with AT&T, and we, at this time, do not accept the POE hardware needs. We will handle those as they come up.
Right, we have a motion on the table. We have a
Second.
second. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
All right, next week, everybody's gonna be digital.
It's gonna take a couple months.
Yeah, now, you're jumping the gun there.
Do we have anything else? Do we have anything else?
Anything else? I'll ask for a motion to
I'll make a
adjourn this
motion, we
special
adjourn.
meeting.
Second.
You got that up, that's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
very much.
welcome. Thank
I
you
think
for
that's
the
so good.
time to.
I think it's gonna be a big help.
Just as long